Sunday represents a pretty significant day for Jack Darling's family. 300 games of AFL footy. I think anyone that's played the game, you start out just wanting to play one game and thinking it's pretty special that you get there, and then you try to build on that. But to play 300 is really, really special. It seems a little bit unusual that it's our club that's celebrating his 300th game, and I'm sure there'd be a lot of people on the other side of the country, West Coast Eagles fans, that would also want to acknowledge the fantastic contribution he made to that club, premiership player for that club, and really, really decorated servant. You know, probably if you're playing 300 games, it doesn't only represent that you obviously got some talent to play the game, but to have the durability to play over that length of time, and then probably there'd be so many different iterations of how the game's played over that period of time as well, that you've got to adapt and be resilient to the way the game's played. So really, really special effort. We're fortunate that we get the chance as a club to celebrate just a wonderful effort for the all supporters of all clubs, really, to acknowledge guys who have played 300 games is pretty special. So we're looking forward to putting on a really good show against the Demons this week. Hopefully celebrate in the right manner, and win, lose or draw, or acknowledge a great contribution to the game.
How have you celebrated him this week, and how did he react when he saw you all wearing that shirt?
Yeah, it's pretty special, and his three young kids, little Rosie was actually able to point out that her dad's on the t-shirt, so it's pretty special when you see the response of the three Darling kids, the two boys and little Rosie. So they've fitted in so beautifully to our footy club. They're on a bit of an adventure as a family. Courtney, Jack, and obviously the three kids, and what would have ever brought them to Victoria if it wasn't for AFL footy, eh? So beautiful adventure that they're on, and whether or not they end up staying in Victoria or going back to WA or whatever happens, this beautiful little time that they get at our footy club, and we've just been wrapped with the contribution he's been able to make in the very little time that he's been here. This is only his second game for our club, but obviously 298 for the West Coast Eagles.
Clarko, what did you make of the performance on the weekend? Now you've had time to digest it.
Yeah, we're just really disappointed with our start, and we had our chances in the first quarter. We couldn't capitalise on some of ours, and the Dogs, they're a well-polished side, and they just use the ball a little bit better and capitalise on their chances. And from quarter time onwards, I think in terms of scoreboard, we actually won the scoreboard from quarter time onwards, and maybe 2 or 3 times in the game got within 4 points, 7 points, 10 points, and just all credit to the Dogs. At that point where we started to challenge and get the scoreboard back working in our favour, they'd kick a quick goal or two, and then push it back out to 2 or 3 goal margin. So that's full credit to the Western Bulldogs. But we were really pleased that we stayed in the game. One of our goals as a side and a club was to try to compete deeper into games this year. We were unable to do that in the early part of last year, and the second half of the year was better. We're pleased that we were able to compete in this game, but we're disappointed that we really didn't give ourselves a real chance from the start, in essence, because we gave them a 4-goal lead at quarter time.
Have you sensed a shift at all in not just the club but outside the club, that it's time to start winning these sort of games rather than just developing the group for the future?
No, all we worry about is the metrics that we go by within the walls of our footy club, and we just know that if we can challenge, we know we're getting better as a side, and all the indicators are that way from about the mid part of last year. We won 3 games. We're in 2 other games that we should have won against West Coast and Collingwood, and didn't get across the line. We're really, really competitive in another game against the Western Bulldogs on the weekend. So we know we're getting closer, but we just got to listen to the noise inside the walls of our footy club rather than the expectations outside, and know that if we can compete deeper into these games like we did on the weekend, then at some point in time that's going to materialise into some victories for us. And then, as we saw with Hawthorn and some other sides, once you start to get that belief, then it can snowball. And just at the minute, there's part of it, without a doubt, because we haven't won very often. There's part of it where we just have to learn how to win again, and hopefully we're on that path right at the moment.
So what's that next missing ingredient then? I mean, you talked about having the belief. Is there anything else, or any one particular thing that can get the club over the line?
There's no silver bullet to it. It's just working hard out here on the track and just getting regular opportunities to play games and go through experiences like the weekend. It's just like, we just didn't put our best foot forward we failed on a couple of key defensive plays in the early part of the game. Didn't capitalise on a couple of those opportunities, and that's the difference in a game of footy nowadays. And as we saw, I hope GWS don't take offence to this, but I thought Melbourne were the better side for a great part of that game last week, but they didn't salute in the end. There's such fine margins in the game. So where we are as a footy club, we've just got to keep rehearsing the stuff on the training track and get opportunities in games to continually practice the things that we need to do to get better as a side. And we've seen enough evidence over the last 10 to 12 games that the team has competed in an AFL level that we're starting to make some ground in that area, but we're not quite there yet, but we're hoping we'll be soon.
Both you and Bevo said after the game on the weekend you didn't think Jackson Arch deserved to be suspended, and it's sort of divided opinion since then. Do you think the MRO and the tribunal got it wrong?
Well, all I would say on that, because we're not technically allowed to actually answer any questions on that, outside of just saying around the health of the two boys. Such is the character of Arch that nearly the first thing that he did post-game was seek out the Western Bulldogs, young fella in Cleary, and then made contact with him on the Sunday, which I think says a hell of a lot about the character of our lad. And Luke and both Lukes from the Western Bulldogs both made comment about the concern of the collision too and how it could have gone either way. Bevo said it could have easily been a free kick to Archer. So, it's a point of conjecture. But to be fair, when it first happened, the concern for us was just around our player, and we thought Archer's broken his leg. So 3 weeks compared to 12 months. There's part of us that says glass half full. We're actually pretty happy with the result because the immediate aftermath of it, I thought Arch was in a lot of trouble. So we send our best wishes to Luke and hope that he has a speedy recovery from the collision. But this is a game of AFL footy where there's a heap of collisions, and it's a pretty rare one, to be fair. I haven't seen one like that for a fair period of time. But the game is so chaotic, and unfortunately we're going to see things like that from time to time where there'll be uproar. We need probably as a game to work out what the decision is made on it. There's a decision that has been made on it, and then we move on.
So what are you teaching Jackson Archer then to do next time he's in that situation?
Well, as I said, these incidents happen that infrequently. When was the last time we saw one of that sort of magnitude? It's just like...
But there has been a few over the journey. The rule was brought in, Gary Rowan sliding on the knees, and Adam Goods and a few others as well. Like a few years ago, it wasn't illegal to attack the ball the way...
Yeah, well, that's for both tribunal, the game itself. Those things have been put in place to protect players and have a duty of care. So at the end of the day, there's a duty of care of both players in that particular incident. So technically, you could probably say both players could have been reported for the same incident. But then it comes down to who got injured and what the outcome was. And so anyway, we. Our focus is on the Demons this week. It's done and dusted. Archer's got a 3-week spell. He's a young player finding his way in the game, and hopefully he learns a little bit out of the incident.
Is Charlie Comben fit this week?
Yeah, well, he trained today. Thought coming out of the game that he might have been in doubt. He rolled his ankle, and but he recovered pretty well but we're really surprised to see how quickly he recovered on the Sunday, and then he was. We were a little bit lighter on the Tuesday, and then he was able to do. I think he nearly did the whole session today. So, unless he pulls up scratchy, I reckon he'll be okay to go.
Any other enforced changes apart from obviously Griff with the hamstring and Jackson?
Yeah, well, even Griff is just ever so slight. His strain. When he had a scan, it was very minor. So we're pleased with that. We thought it might be a little bit more serious than that. So. But he'll certainly miss, and we don't play till Sunday. We'll sit down and work out the side either this afternoon or tomorrow, and make sure we get all our guys through training. They've pulled up okay, and then pick our side to take on a Demons unit who I said earlier on. I was really impressed with the way they went about last week. I think Goody even said in his press conference, they did a lot of things right, and the one metric that they didn't get right was the most important one, and that is the scoreboard. So. We're expecting a pretty keenly contested game, and we need to get better, and I'm sure the Demons will be really keen to get their first victory for the year as well.
How big an opportunity is it for Tristan Cherry and your mids?
Yeah, well, opportunity. Yeah, it's an opportunity every time you play, but challenge is is probably more appropriate. You're coming up against one of the best midfielders in the competition, certainly the most decorated ruck in the era that these guys are playing in, Max, and Petrarca, Oliver, Jack Viney, Rivers is playing through there. They're really good wings. Young Lindsay was really impressive in his first game last week, and Langdon on the other wing. So their midfield is a real strength of theirs. So opportunity, but also enormous challenge. So that's the excitement, and probably without trying to repeat what coaches have said for the last 100 years, it's going to be won or lost in the middle of the ground.
Cam Zerha last week, it felt like a real almost game from him. Like he popped up at all different times, but just the end product, I guess, wasn't there. Is it the same sort of thing for him in terms of taking that game by the scruff of the neck?
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. Just capitalising on some opportunities when you get forward, and we miss a couple of ones that we'd like to get, and perhaps the Dogs were just a little bit more polished. At 3/4 time, I think we had more scoring shots, but we were still down by a goal or a little bit more. So we're hoping to get better in that space. But some of it is just early in the season. In all of the games, no one, despite the results, and some teams really pleased with the way that they played. There's not a game, particularly early in the season, that's not particularly mistake-ridden, and we just didn't finish our work as well as we'd like, and Cam was one of those, and I'm sure we were hoping if he gets 5 shots a goal this week, he kicks 4-1 rather than 1-4.